has. President Trump says the government has acted quickly to respond to the virus.
We're ready to adapt, and we're ready to do whatever we have to as the disease spreads, if it spreads.
Contradicting the Centers for Disease Control, the president says he does not believe the spread of the virus in the U.S. is inevitable. Congress now proposing to quadruple the amount of money the administration has requested to fight the coronavirus. Worldwide, infections have now surpassed 82,000. More than 2,770 people have died from the virus, and the markets are still struggling with potential financial impacts. The Dow dropping 123 points on Wednesday. Dow futures are trading more than 380 points lower. They're crying in their beer in Milwaukee after a gunman opens fire at one of the country's largest breweries.
A total of 6 people are dead here at the Molson Coors campus. Police say they responded to the shooting around 2 p.m. local time to discover the 51-year-old male shooter died of self-inflicted wounds. The 5 victims were all employees.
Fox's Matt Finn in Milwaukee.
We can now say that the scene is secure. All employees that were on scene has been allowed to go home.
That's Milwaukee's police chief, Alfonso Morales, who says they won't release any names until Thursday afternoon. The motive under investigation, but Fox 6 in Milwaukee reports the shooter had previously filed suit against the company over a benefits issue. America is listening to Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is stirring up some of your favorite drinks all night long. Come down on Wednesday and Friday nights from 5:30 to 10 p.m. Indulge in some of your favorite local cuisine and pair it with your favorite drink. From our ice-cold beers, our finest selection of wines and liquors, to our top-notch cocktail specials, your friends at Mezcla Bistro Tumon are ready to serve you. Why limit happy to only an hour? The Mezcla family reminds everyone to drink responsibly. See you on Wednesday and Friday night.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in? Wait, hold on, that was last month. Now it's this month. But by popular demand, we're extending our New Year's solution 4.65% personal loan through February. Money for whatever you want at 4.65% APR from Bank Pacific. We're still celebrating.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
The House has passed a long-sought bill to make lynching a federal hate crime.
Illinois Congressman Bobby Rush calls lynching an American evil.
We send a strong message that violence and race-based violence in particular has no place in American society.
Rush sponsored the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act approved by the House on a 410-4 vote. The Senate has approved a companion bill marking the first time in more than 100 years Congress has passed legislation classifying lynching as a federal hate crime. The measure is named after Emmett Till, a 14-year-old who was beaten and lynched in Mississippi in 1955. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The Democrat National Committee warning its presidential candidates that an imposter is posing as a DNC staffer with a website domain similar to the DNC's and is reaching out to some of the candidates looking for information. The group's security suggesting there's a Russian link. A Massachusetts utility company paying restitution following those deadly fires and explosions 3 years ago.
Columbia Gas of Massachusetts has agreed to plead guilty following a series of explosions that left 1 dead and rocked dozens of homes north of Boston back in 2018.
A $53 million penalty.
FBI Special Agent in charge, Joseph Bonavolonta.
No amount of money can make up for the disastrous gas explosions in the Merrimack Valley.
Many were forced into temporary shelters. Thousands of homes and businesses went without natural gas for weeks, even months. Federal investigators blame overpressurized gas lines. Tom Graham, Fox News.
Lawyers for Full House actress Lori Loughlin and her husband say they have new evidence that shows the couple is innocent of charges. They bribed their daughter's way into colleges. The attorney says they have notes from the admitted ringleader showing the couple's claims they believed the payments were legitimate donations. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is now introducing an at-table all-you-can-eat breakfast menu from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. every Saturday and 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. every Sunday. Enjoy some quality time with your friends and family with some of your favorite local cuisine, from their waffle, hotcakes, and French toast station to their eggs and omelet station and a variety of scrumptious desserts. Weekends at Mezcla Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel just got hotter. New year, new menu. Call 969-2652 for reservations. Some restrictions apply.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Michael Nicholas. Our veterans deserve the best, and I'm working hard to make sure they receive what they earned defending our freedom. If you need help receiving the benefits you earned from the VA or the Defense Department, please call my office at 475-6453 or go online at stnicholas.house.gov. On behalf of a grateful community, thank you for your service.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael Nicholas.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. Well, we have a First Amendment to the United States Constitution, and I won't read it, but if I were writing it, I would write it like this: a well-informed citizenry being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to listen to tall tales shall not be infringed. What do you think of that, Real Joe Cruz?
It's perfect, sir.
Yeah. You know, it's a miracle that they didn't think about that back in 1787 when they were writing the United States Constitution.
True, sir.
Well, I guess if I stop and think about it, it would have been kind of hard to think in terms of a great radio program like Tall Tales. Great as it is, would have been a little bit beyond them back in 1787 because they didn't even have radios back in those days. But if they had, there's no doubt that that would have been part of the First Amendment. Okay, so after Tall Tales, the next item on our agenda here is what we call Zemi Economy. I need to talk for a moment about the black swan. Now, we've all seen pictures of swans. They're those graceful birds with very long, curved necks. And what color are swans, Real Joe Cruz?
I think they're white, sir.
Yeah, they're always white, except when they're not.
Ah, I see.
Now, there is such a thing as a black swan, but very few people would ever in a lifetime ever see a black swan. So a black swan is a term that's used for something that's unexpected, that hasn't happened before, or if it happened before, it happened a long, long time ago. It's unexpected. It's unprecedented. It's, to say nothing, not the least, it's strange. So today we have in our midst a black swan. Yes, as I look at the editorial pages of our two daily newspapers, as show prep for Tall Tales, Zemi Economy, which is my backwards bilingual play on words, that means meet the press, and I get ready for my usual ridicule of the Daily News for not running local editorials and get ready to dismiss it out of hand and go straight to the post. What do I find? Let's have a drum roll there, Real Joe Cruz. A a local PDN editorial. Yeah, talk about a black swan. Yeah, not some boilerplate that they ran from USA Today. Not something they cobbed off with from Gannett. Their own editorial. So here's what it says. Our view, delay was wrong. On Monday, during the State of the Island address, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero had some good news to share with the community. Guam was officially free of the dengue virus. I was right there in the audience, and I heard her say it. In fact, she didn't just say it, it was dramatic. And she said something along the lines of, and now some more good news because the dengue fever epidemic is now over. Almost as dramatic as Lou's pronouncement of how long she wanted the 25% increase in the GRT to last, which was, Governor, how long would you like to have the 25% increase in the GRT? How long would you want that to go on? Forever. Yeah. So, it's not the Actors Guild or anything like that, but our governor does have a way of presenting facts in a dramatic, presenting items in a dramatic fashion. And the end of the dengue fever epidemic was a good example of that. Well, here's what the Daily News had to say about that little bit of drama. On Monday, during the State of the Island address, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero had some good news to share with the community. Guam was officially free of the dengue virus. Before late last year, Guam had reported no locally acquired cases of dengue fever in the last 75 years. After an outbreak of the disease in Micronesia and the Philippines, dengue fever returned to Guam. The question is, why did the governor wait until Monday evening to make the official declaration? Last Thursday, public health officials and the governor said if there were no new cases of dengue recorded by Friday, when there were officially 40 days without any new cases, the island would be considered dengue-free. But the declaration wasn't made as of Friday afternoon. The day is not yet over, Public Health Director Linda DeNorsi said. As far as I'm concerned, we're counting down. Yet there was no declaration made on Saturday, when mosquito nets and mosquito repellents were distributed to vulnerable populations and those living in substandard homes. There was no declaration made on Sunday. There was no declaration made on Monday. Carlo Branch, the governor's director of policy, said Adelup was reluctant to issue the declaration before the State of the Island because the administration wanted to be sure the island was dengue-free. Well past the 40 days without a case of dengue. He said there was no political motivation behind waiting until the governor had a large audience for a major speech. No political motivation at all. Branch described the delay as a communication motivation. The delay was wrong. The governor should have made the official declaration as soon as the 40-day requirement was met. Waiting until the State of the Island speech to make the declaration had clear political motivations. the administration could declare victory over a virus that sickened and killed people in our region. Well, I suppose if you look at it from the standpoint that if Lou were going to run against dengue fever, it would have been a politically motivated delay. I see it in actually simpler terms. You know, when the governor makes a state of the island, what we used to call a state of the territory address, the governor wants to grab some headlines. The governor wants to be dramatic. The governor doesn't want to stand up there and read several pages of dull statistics. The governor is looking for pizzazz wherever she could find it. And she found it when she said, and now the dengue fever epidemic is now over. Applause. The House was brought down with a round of applause. It was very dramatic. So if I were helping the Daily News here, I would ask this question. Which should have greater weight, a dramatic presentation on TV or a forthright approach to dispensing information about public health concerns? And I'll give you a little hint. Probably the second one is the one that should be chosen. The editorial goes on to say, dengue fever is a matter of public health and one that has caused concern in the community for months. Matters of public health should transcend politics. And I'm going to rewrite it a little bit. Matters of public health should transcend dramatics. We hope our leaders keep this in mind as the island and the world struggle with the growing challenge of coronavirus. All right, I got more to say about this, but I noticed that the Real Joe Cruz was a little bit premature on opening the Jimmy line. I would have liked to have finished Demi Cotney before you opened the Jimmy line, Real Joe Cruz, but...
It slipped in, sir.
Okay, here we go. Howdy, Jimmy.
Oh, I've only got one here.
Say again, Jimmy?
Oh, only one. Yeah. Hey, it's just terrific to talk to you on this beautiful Dominion Thursday afternoon. But do you know what the difference between a fairy tale and a GovGuam press release is?
I give up, Jimmy. What's the difference between a fairy tale and a GovGuam press release?
A fairy tale starts with once upon a time. You want to know another difference between a GovGuam press release and a fairy tale?
I give up, Jimmy. What's the difference between a GovGuam press release and a fairy tale?
Sometimes fairy tales have happy endings. Yeah. I'll talk to you later. Sorry.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for helping out. Yeah. So I think I told you the difference between a fairy tale, a parable, and a sea story the other day, didn't I, Real Joe Cruz?
I don't recall, sir.
Yeah, well, just in case. A fairy tale begins once upon a time. A parable begins, and it came to pass. A sea story begins, oh, this here ain't no... I can't use the last word on here, but you get it, right? Yeah, that's the difference. Okay, so let's go back. Thank you very much, Jimmy. It's having you on the air, entertaining our international radio listening audience with your riddles is a breath of fresh air. It's a ray of sunshine. Okay, so the PDN really blasts Lou for hanging on to that important bit of information and then breaking it during her State of the Territory address. Ironically, the February 26th issue, that is yesterday's issue of the Post, ran this little tidbit. Guam not dengue free. 2 recent locally acquired dengue cases. 2 days after Governor Lulian Guerrero said in her State of the Island address, our dengue fever outbreak is over. Public Health on Wednesday confirmed that there are recently confirmed locally acquired dengue cases. The onset of symptoms for one locally acquired fever case was reported on February 8 and confirmed on February 26, according to Public Health. I wonder who this guy Public Health is. That's a strange name. Another locally acquired dengue case was confirmed on January 11. It takes 3 or more locally acquired dengue cases in a 2-week period for Public Health to declare a dengue outbreak, according to Public Health. The last dengue outbreak on Guam began and ended in September 2019, Public Health stated. Public Health is distributing 5,000 mosquito nets that were donated by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So I guess Lou's okay, because she said our dengue fever outbreak is over. So during the time that her scriveners were putting ink on paper, or perhaps digits in teleprompters, as the case is nowadays, 2 dengue cases were an outbreak, or the incidence of 2 dengue cases occurred. But it's okay. Lou is still correct. It was not a dengue outbreak, because you need 3 for an outbreak. We only had 2. No harm, no foul. Just move along. There's nothing to see over here. There's no dengue outbreak. Pay no attention to those 2 really sick people laying around over there in the corner. There's no dengue outbreak. All right, let's see. Another Joe. You opened all the lines, huh? The Joe line,
You said, sir, the people who listen shall not be infringed.
Yeah. Who am I to argue with such an authority as that, right? Okay, another Joe. Good afternoon.
Hey, Uncle Bob. So it would seem as though if it becomes a habit of having to make new decisions, calculations with these epidemics, it seems to be routine. It should be put on the table as far as negotiating the compact impact agreements. I don't know when the next one is. I think, did they just finish a negotiation? Or are they still heading towards one? 2024,
but what does dengue fever have to do with compact negotiations?
Well, the issue is about freedom of travel between these pre-associated nations and the U.S., which really translates to Guam and the next jurisdiction is CNMI. So they can travel between their jurisdiction and the 2 U.S. jurisdictions here, yet there's got to be some consideration given to all the parties. I imagine that the CNMI has allowed to add their 2 cents at some point. Does their agreement with the U.S. Allow for them to have representation, Uncle Bob? What is it called? A covenant? What is the agreement between CNMI?
There is a covenant between the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas and the United States, but it doesn't have anything to do with the freely associated states, which are independent countries. And to say that there is a compact dimension involving coronavirus, I think, is really a reach. Another Joe.
Well, I mean, I'm not ending it there. I'm saying, what's the next epidemic to emerge? You know, will these jurisdictions say, hey, we have some concerns here, and we want to put them bring them up in the appropriate venue, the appropriate.
Yeah, and how are the negotiations between the United States and the freely associated states? How is dengue fever? Excuse me. How is coronavirus?
No, both actually. Both, if they're arriving, do they have before the corona?
As much as possible, as much as possible, avoid the use of the word "they," because nobody knows what the heck it means anymore.
So these nations, I believe they were in the news. They were having their own outbreaks of dengue fever, and other whatever it is they were going through. But they were still allowed to migrate whenever I guess whenever the federal government tolerated it, even if they were going through, I don't know.
You know, I know the name of the game is let's see how many different things we can blame on the federal government. I know those are the rules, but this just doesn't happen to be one. If there were an outbreak of dengue fever or coronavirus in any one of the freely associated states, we would have the ability to say nobody from those places can enter, just like we said nobody from Hong Kong.
Okay.
I mean, it just isn't there. Another Joe. I mean,
I apologize. I misunderstood, and thanks for correcting my understanding. But with regards to Governor Lulian Guerrero and the FESPAC, that's still in play, right?
Yes, it is.
Going to this.
Yeah.
So my thought on Kebab is to be able to comprehend when they have FESPAC here on Guam, they have multiple events, and they not all events. There were so many occurring simultaneously that not everyone could go to every event. So the way they handle it is that every country who have representation they have to choose which events to send their representatives to. So I think that will be possibly the case in Hawaii. I'm guessing they'll have multiple events simultaneously, and possibly this might be the reason that Lulian Guerrero wants so many people. Not that they're all hula dancers, but to attend these multiple events. I'm just saying it's possible that might be the situation.
I can't tell you how excited I am that Michael Bavacqua is going to be one of those people that we're spending money on to send to Honolulu. I'm just overjoyed by that.
Well, what I'm saying, Uncle Bob, is I don't think it's all for dancing. Hula dancing.
Oh no, we're sending people who are literary artists, Bavacqua and Laura Sauter, etc. I guess they're going to set up booths and sit down with a pen and a piece of paper and show people how they write.
So really the issue is we want them to pay their. It's not a problem until they make the people, the government, pay. If they had planned ahead and fundraise, then that would have been the appropriate way to go about it, is what you're saying there.
It's the only way. If I could have my way, remember what I want to see is an effective, efficient government operating within the rule of law that provides basic government services. That's all. Real Joe Cruz, when I was a little young, in fact, when I was a lot younger, I went to Boston to run the Boston Marathon. And you know how much the government gave me to pay for my ticket to go to Boston to run the Boston Marathon? And I had a singlet that said Guam on the front of it, right? Think of the exposure there that Guam got. Everybody I ran past, ooh, look at that guy. He's from Guam. Wow. I'd really like to spend a vacation on Guam. But you know how much the government gave me to go to Boston?
Me or Joe?
Joe, you know how much?
Zero.
Another Joe? Yeah.
Zero?
Zero, yeah. Absolutely nothing. So, adults should pay for their own recreation.
Well, then, Uncle Bob, then we better get Lilian Guerrero to really throw a really good sales pitch as to why she thought it was a good investment for the people of Guam. And I'll tell you what, that better be some really good data collecting that these people make. We're in Hawaii, Oahu, Hawaii. So anyway, thanks for your time, Uncle Bob. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, Another Joe. Okay, got a short break coming up here. We'll come back to Demi Cudney then.
If you own a Toyota, please listen to this. It could help you avoid injury, maybe save your life. The Takata airbags installed in certain Toyotas can explode and shoot out sharp metal fragments at people inside the vehicle. You don't need to be in a collision. They could explode any time. In the U.S., these airbags have caused 26 deaths. There's been a worldwide recall of Takata airbags, and most have had the faulty parts replaced. But here in Guam, there are still over 3,000 Toyotas on the road with potentially lethal airbags, and yours could be one of them. So please, take your Toyota to Atkins Grow, even if you didn't buy it from us, and get the inflator replaced. It costs you nothing. It takes just about an hour, and it could save a life, yours or someone you love. The AK song says we're here for life. That's never been more true.
At Atkins Grow, we're here for life.
Cocoa Coffee Company mugs are now here. Show pride for your island as you enjoy your delicious Circle K coffee. Each generously sized 16-ounce mug is etched with Guam-inspired images like Chief Gadao, Serena, Two Lovers, and many more. The Cocoa Coffee Company mug collection is available for a limited time only, so don't miss out. Get yours today and collect them all. Exclusively available at Circle K locations. A portion of the proceeds go toward the Cocoa Bird Recovery Program.
I've often said I'm not a fan of micromanaging, but I'm also not a fan of being unhappily surprised by things I should have known if I had been paying more attention to what workers were doing. There needs to be a balance, right? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban might have found it for us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spittin' truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So, we've just been talking about the Daily News editorial, Little Lulu making a dramatic presentation about the end of the dengue fever outbreak. And the Daily News was unmercifully critical for her for hanging on to that news for 3 days just to increase the drama. And I don't know if you believe in karma, but this not only incurred the wrath of the Daily News, but it also resulted in some bad karma for Governor Liu, because yesterday's Post ran a story that Guam is not dengue-free, that we have 2 new cases of dengue fever. But it's okay because an outbreak is 3. So Lou is still correct. We only have 2. Takes 3 for an outbreak. So the outbreak is over. And some good-hearted, some good Samaritan ought to take that news to the 2 people who are now in agonizing pain, suffering from dengue fever. This would cheer them up a little bit, that even though they have dengue fever, there are only 2 of them, and therefore we don't have an outbreak. So that's the Daily News for today. A big, big surprise. The Daily News actually wrote a local editorial, perhaps ending a long drought. It's been a long time since the Daily News got a blue star. They only have 55 of them compared to the Post 175. So now I actually have to go to work here. I actually have to make a judgment call as to which of these 2 editorials is the best. Yeah, I've gotten a pass for so long. I even had to go out out doing boonie stopping, looking for other editorials like Don Ho and a couple from Troy over at Candid News, just so I'd have more than one editorial to look at. But here's the post. Elected officials lack effective response to the disruption of jobs, livelihoods. By the time Governor Lulian Guerrero delivered her State of the Island address Monday, travel fears sparked by the novel coronavirus cases outside of Guam had begun to manifest in our local tourism and hospitality industry. Dining places were near empty at usually busy times. Not a lot of workers were getting called to work in hotels and restaurants, or if they did, the hours were fewer. Optional tour operators were seeing double-digit declines. The AB Wonpat Airport was getting dozens of flight cancellations from South Korea. Japan flights are still holding up, but our South Korean visitor market is taking a big hit. South Korea now accounts for the bulk of tourist arrivals on Guam, 753,357 out of 1.66 million last year. Japan, formerly the top market, ranked second with 684,802 of Guam's arrivals last year. When South Korean arrivals dip, so goes our visitor industry. Some Guam hotels are seeing occupancy rates of less than 50%, which is a scary situation with a lot of jobs and livelihoods on the line. Yet we haven't really seen our wobbling tourist industry get the attention it deserves from our elected officials. And let me read that sentence again. We haven't really seen our wobbling tourist industry get the attention it deserves from our elected officials. I don't know if this is good or bad. There were a few efforts, but none has offered ways to provide immediate help to workers and small business owners. Speaker Tina Munya Barnes did write to the White House seeking the inclusion of Guam in any federal aid package, and the governor did express continued optimism that our tourist industry will be okay. Well, okay, that's it. The governor expressed continued optimism that our tourist industry would be okay. So let's go back and examine the comfort we took from the State of the Island address. The dengue fever outbreak is now over, and our tourist industry, let's see, the governor is optimistic about our tourist industry. So, you know, when you go to sleep tonight, sleep soundly. Everything is fine. It is not reassuring to see our elected officials failing to pay closer attention and immediately huddle in emergency meetings to try and discuss ways to help those who are adversely affected. A huddle. We might not have the novel coronavirus in our midst. That many of our households are already hurting because fewer tourists are traveling to Guam. In the governor's speech, her first since having served in office for a full year, the emerging economic fallout of the novel coronavirus was addressed in what seemed like a passing mention. Oh, yeah, there's a coronavirus over there. Quote, the latest available data indicates that tourism numbers year-to-date are still in the black, that federal and military spending are at record levels, and that the fundamentals of our economy are strong, said the governor. And you recall, was it yesterday or the day before, I pointed out the governor said, well, you know, we collected more taxes than what we'd expected. We've got a rainy day fund. We're managing. We're going to be okay. And the way I interpreted that, or perhaps the only way it could be interpreted, meant that the government of Guam will be okay. All you government of Guam folks, don't worry about furloughs. Don't worry about having your hours reduced. The government of Guam will be okay. Private sector? Well, I don't know. I'm optimistic. The governor also said, while we remain confident, my fiscal team is keeping a close watch on the situation, preparing for all possibilities and monitoring the economic impacts of this new threat, the governor added. These are not reassuring words for our frontline workers in the tourism and hospitality industries. There is no unemployment insurance safety net on Guam. So when the industry experiences a downturn, workers and small business owners immediately feel the impact. Until our elected officials can figure something out in the way of assistance and do it quickly, our hospitality workers, who are called heroes on better days, are left to fend for themselves. They may soon have to make choices between what bills to pay or what food or medicine to buy, if at all. I don't know. This is the second time that the Post has kind of seemed like it's leaning pretty hard to the left. Yesterday it was endorsing socialized medicine. Today, when we have an economic downturn, the first question they ask is, what's the government going to do? How will the government take care of these workers? Now, there are things that the government can do, not in a positive sense, but in the other sense. There are things that the government, I a little in the beginning of the article, I said, I took a certain amount of comfort from this sentence. We haven't really seen our wobbling tourist industry get the attention it deserves from our elected officials. I think that's probably good. I can't think of elected officials doing anything to our tourist industry except making the problems worse. But it's been pointed out on more than one occasion, if you really want to do something, hold off on increasing the minimum wage, that would be 1, and roll back the GRT to 4%, that would be 2. But that would mean, if we did that, if we rolled the GRT back, wow, would the government of Guam have enough money? Would they be able to make payroll every day, every time? Would we be able to do all of these wonderful things that we want the government to do? So these are the times when we find out what we're really all about here. I get the impression from reading the editorial, and maybe I'm reading something that isn't there, but what the Post expects is that the government will provide some kind of an income subsidy or cash to people who lose their jobs because of the economic coronavirus downturn. What else could they be meaning? How else are you going to help those unfortunates that lose their jobs? How are you going to help them directly? The only way that a government ought to help people is by getting the heck out of the way. I mentioned maybe what we need to do is put a moratorium on the hotel occupancy tax. Every room that we rent out costs 11% more than it should. Now, there are people in the tourist industry who would be able to tell you if we were able to reduce the cost of rooms by 11%, would we be renting more rooms? Would it make any difference in the face of the coronavirus? Since most of our tourists, or many of our tourists, come from Japan, would that make the island more attractive to Japan in light of the fact that we're losing some of our Korea market? These are the kinds of things that the government can do. Reduce taxes. Get out of the way. That just doesn't seem to be what the Post has in mind. One other thing that the Post mentioned that I think I need to explain here, the Post says that there is no unemployment insurance safety net on Guam. We don't have unemployment insurance. I read somewhere that Guam is the only place in the American jurisdiction that doesn't have unemployment insurance. So I'm going to take a minute to explain what it is for those who haven't had any experience with it. If you're living in one of the 50 states, in addition to paying Medicare tax, income tax, FICA, the money you pay into Social Security, you would also be paying a small tax for unemployment insurance. The state collects that money, and when people are unemployed, they are able to draw against that fund. So the way it works in Wisconsin, anyhow, the state runs an employment agency or employment bureau. So if you don't have a job, if you lose your job, you go to that employment bureau and you fill out, a couple reams of papers, your name, rank, serial number, blood type, shoe size, color preference, on and on and on. Nowadays, I suppose you'd have to list your preferred pronouns. Mine would be he and him, believe it or not, and his. Yeah, so you do all that, and after a certain period of time, like 10 days, you withdraw a check every week or so. But once you fill out those papers, you will get referrals for employment. And the idea is you're supposed to, if you get a referral, you're supposed to take the job. And if you don't, there is a mechanism that would provide that you don't draw unemployment insurance. So that's the way unemployment insurance works, at least as far as the way I understand it. But, of course, it's one more tax that the worker has to pay. We don't have it here, and I suppose being a free market capitalist, I'm kind of glad that we don't have it here. I suspect that it would be very difficult of administration on our island, and here you are, another Joe, especially with habitual residents coming here from the freely associated states. Okay, I'm going to make my judgment now as to which of the two editorials is the better. Post, once again, boy, I don't know what's going on over there at the Post. They were doing so well for so long, but they seem to be listing a little bit to the port here lately. A little bit on the kind of the left-wing side. Maybe they've hired a new editorial writer who writes with his left hand instead of his right hand, or thinks with the left side of his brain instead of the right side. And, of course, you know from yesterday's program, Chris Duenas let it be known to all and sundry that Bob is very, very, very seldom wrong. But even when he is, he's always right. And that's true. I'm always right. I'm always on the right side. And the Post isn't. The Daily News, on the other hand, lived up to all of what I look for in an editorial. It was timely, it was topical, it was factual, it had a good operating theory, it had a punchline, and it held somebody accountable. Not only that, the somebody that got held accountable was Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. Therefore, here we go, Real Joe Cruz. The coveted Blue Star goes to the Daily News. That probably saved somebody's job down there at the Daily News. I suspect that some Gannett high muckety-muck got on the phone and said, "Hey, you guys out there, what are you doing? You never get the Blue Star." You guys better shape up or we're going to find some new talent out there in the editorial boardroom. I don't know if that's what happened or not, but anyhow, the Daily News got the Blue Star today. All right. Okay, let me just take a minute here to cruise through. Let me hang on a second here. We got a break coming up.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is stirring up some of your favorite drinks all night long. Come down on Wednesday and Friday nights from 5:30 to 10 p.m. Indulge in some of your favorite local cuisine and pair it with your favorite drink. From our ice-cold beers, our finest selection of wines and liquors, to our top-notch cocktail specials, your friends at Mezcla Bistro Tumon are ready to serve you. Why limit happy to only an hour? The Mezcla family reminds everyone to drink responsibly. See you on Wednesday and Friday night.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans, carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, well, we're getting pretty close to that big halftime show that you all enjoy so much at 1700. So rather than start on the card, I'm going to cruise through my Facebook posts here and see just exactly what I got. Nate, of course, horned in first. And Pam Duvall, who is as regular as the change of seasons, is here. And Jeanette J.J. Jeji Cruz from the heroic village of Otdut. J.J. Cruz. And Gus Jasongas, of course, Gus is signing in from Texas. James Howard is here. And James Howard says, can you put on the card AG versus CCU, the civil lawsuit? What does it mean? What can we expect? Hey, James Howard, already now? We did that one yesterday. But if I got time before the big halftime show, I'll give you a shorthand rendition of what it's all about. And Pam Duvall said, I shake it up. Will do. Richard Leone says, is it true DPR, yikes, Ibanez has resigned? He didn't submit his papers to Tall Tales. So the question becomes, can a government official resign without submitting his papers to Tall Tales? Which is kind of the reverse of the question, can Tall Tales fire a government official without serving the papers on him?
Papers, please.
Your papers, please. Your papers are not in order. You'll have to come to the headquarters with us. We ask questions for you. You will answer. We have a race. Yeah, where was I here? I don't know. I'll catch up on that, and if that's the case, I will have some pithy comments about it tomorrow for sure. Nate Horn, the Black Swan, and then the Green Swamp. Dado and Agania Pools. Let's see. Nate Horn, papers say yes. Oh, I got to check the papers during the break. Ishmael Velez, coronavirus or H1N1, which should we fear? One makes you sick, the other gets you in the rear. While both are riddled in controversy, one thing for sure, only one of these virtues is full of manure. I'm sorry, one of these viruses is full of manure. So the H1N1 virus. And then we've got our Carl, howdy Bob, Real Joe Cruz, and the International Tall Tales Truth posse. That's who we are. And Gus mentions meet the press. And Gus Jasonga says, what? What? Second base. Gus, second base. What's on second? Right, real Joe Cruz?
Who?
First base.
Who's on first?
Who's on first? Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's on second then?
No, what's on second?
Oh.
You have a hard time with it. You never get that one right, do you, real Joe Cruz? Next time it comes up, just say, I don't know.
Okay, sir.
What are you going to say?
I don't know.
That's our third baseman. All right, Ishmael Velez, coronavirus, dengue. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go down here a little bit farther. Carl Borja Nelson, it's got to be true. Lou said it. I guess he's talking about the dengue outbreak. And then Carl comes back and says, I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. One of the better lines from Casablanca. And Gus Jasongas, lol, and laughing out loud, lies, laughing out loud. And Gus Jasonga, Branch should be fired, and they should hire Twigs, laughing out loud. Okay. And Ishmael Velez, hear ye, the almighty Lourdes Luan Guerrero is correct. Guam is coronavirus free. Anything multiplied by 0 equals 0. 0 test kits for coronavirus equals 0 cases. The math is unquestionable. And and then Carl comes back and says, I thought they said free Finadeni. That's part of Jose Martinez. Hey, Prim, the governor said that Guam is dengue free. How can I get some? And Carl says, I thought they said free Finadeni. Well, these two guys, 1,000 stand-up comedians out of work in the United States, and they come on Facebook to tell jokes. Okay. And then we got James Howard talking about, the Black Swan and the Daily News. James Howard says, except for that one time the judge met Chuck Norris, it was the very day the earth stood still. Yeah, that would do it. Nate Horn, see, PDN, if you write an editorial, you get a star. Go figure. Yeah. You can't get into the ball game unless you have a ticket, PDN. Pierre, I thought you were tongue-in-cheek. The road is actually a good description. When I look at her, I am reminded of some of these Chinese fairy tales. And that's part of a thread. Let me see the rest of the thread. Let's see. Okay, well, I got just to the end of the Facebook post, just in time. It's time for the big halftime show. The marching bands, the cheerleaders, the sword swallowers, the fire eaters. Enjoy. I'll see you in about 7 minutes.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A new corona case in the U.S. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The patient in Northern California, the 60th confirmed diagnosis in the country. But unlike the rest, this appears to be a case of community infection. How he or she contracted the virus, not clear. No overseas travel and no known contact with anyone who has. Although the patient lives in the same California county where the Travis Air Force Base is located, to where some of the people infected aboard a cruise ship in Japan were repatriated. And the fight against the virus has become political. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi criticizing the president's response.
What he's doing is late, too late, anemic. Hopefully we can make up for the loss of time.
President charging the speaker is trying to create a political crisis.
Instead of making a statement like that, she should be saying we have to work together because we have a big problem potentially.
Democrat California Congressman John Garamendi telling Fox News at night a virus knows no party.
It's not a Democrat or Republican virus. All the back and forth might be considered to be a virus. The reality is that for the Congress to do anything, it's going to have to be bipartisan.
Congress considering spending authorizations worth more than $8 billion to fund emergency response to the outbreak. Another hot political issue, sanctuary policies. A federal appeals court in New York ruling the administration is within its rights to deny grants to cities or states who refuse to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. Other courts have issued conflicting rulings. The case will probably end up in the Supreme Court. 6 people killed in a brewery in Milwaukee. Police responding mid-afternoon to an active shooter call, finding the apparent gunman dead.
We have located 5 additional deceased adult victims. The victims all worked at Molson Coors.
Milwaukee Police Chief Alfonso Morales, the shooter, was a 51-year-old man who had worked at the plant. The motive still under investigation. America is listening to Fox News.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in? Wait, hold on, that was last month. Now it's this month. But by popular demand, we're extending our New Year's solution 4.65% personal loan through February. Money for whatever you want at 4.65% APR from Bank Pacific. We're still celebrating.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Mescla Tomorrow Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is now introducing an at-table all-you-can-eat breakfast menu. From 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. every Saturday and 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. every Sunday. Enjoy some quality time with your friends and family with some of your favorite local cuisine. From their waffle, hotcakes, and French toast station to their eggs and omelet station and a variety of scrumptious desserts. Weekends at Mescla Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel just got hotter. New year, new menu. Call 969-2652 for reservations. Some restrictions apply.
A Texas district attorney taking another look at convictions secured by a former police officer who's now facing murder charges.
Harris County prosecutors say 69 cases of ex-cop Gerald Goins are under scrutiny in light of a deadly raid last year. DA Kim Ogg says Goins lied to get the warrant that led to the action that killed 2 people and hurt 5 officers, including Goins. Ogg says that incident calls Goins' word into question, and her office needs to clear people convicted because of that. Additional cases connected to another former officer in Houston PD's Narcotics Division, Stephen Bryant, are also being reevaluated. In addition to murder, Goins is charged with providing false information in the deadly raid. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Military students from Saudi Arabia resuming flight training at U.S. bases nearly 3 months after a Saudi trainee shot and killed 3 sailors at the Naval Air Station Pensacola. This time, though, they will not be allowed to possess firearms. 4 men accused of being neo-Nazis have been arrested around the country for threatening journalists and a civil rights group.
4 men who were part of a neo-Nazi group called Atomwaffen were arrested in Texas, Arizona, Florida, and Washington state for threatening journalists, the Anti-Defamation League, and others. FBI Special Agent in charge in Seattle, Ray Duda, says Atomwaffen is active on social media, but some members have attended what he called military-style training and hate camps.
FBI Director Ray recently testified regarding this increase in activity. The violence associated with these groups has surpassed the violence associated with groups that we deem international terrorism groups here in the United States.
Another Atomwaffen member is charged in Virginia with threatening people, including a reporter and a cabinet member. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Late winter blizzard hitting the leeward edge of the Great Lakes. Parts of western and upstate New York could see 2 feet of snow between now and late Friday. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
I've often said I'm not a fan of micromanaging, but I'm also not a fan of being unhappily surprised by things I should have known if I had been paying more attention to what workers were doing. There needs to be a balance, right? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban might have found it for us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Hafa Adai, this is Congressman Michael Nicholas. Our veterans deserve the best, and I'm working hard to make sure they receive what they earned defending our freedom. If you need help receiving the benefits you earned from the VA or the Defense Department, please call my office at 475-6453 or go online at stnicholas.house.gov. On behalf of a grateful community, thank you for your service.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael Nicholas.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, well, that's the big halftime show that you've all come to love and anticipate so much. Every day at 1700, we do that big halftime show. It's now over. It's now over. That means we're in the second half of Tall Tales. I've got a little less than an hour to wrap up another exciting, elucidating, educational, informative episode of Tall Tales. Before the break, I went through the Facebook posts, and a couple of people said that Richard Ibanez had resigned at Parks and Rec, and that it was covered in the papers. Well, PNC News, the Post, and KOAM did cover it. The Daily News didn't. Daily News is probably still exhausted from writing an editorial for today's paper. But the best coverage was KOAM, and this is what Chris Barnett said. Amidst the problematic closures of both public pools and the reinstatement of the former state historic preservation officer, DPR Director Rich Ibanez has resigned. Ibanez, in a letter to Governor Lulian Guerrero, cited, quote, health reasons for his resignation. A source close to the situation tells KOAM Ibanez was forced to resign. A source close to the situation tells KOAM Ibanez was forced to resign. Ibanez had faced controversy recently over the closure of both public swimming pools due to lack of maintenance by the contractor. Well, he fired the contractor on Tuesday, but perhaps it was too little too late. And then the article goes on to say he also faced some fire over his termination of former state historic preservation officer, also known as the SHPO, Linda Uggan. Uggan won the appeal of her termination before the Civil Service Commission and was recently reinstated as the Guam Historic Preservation Officer, also known as the JIPO. And the article goes on to say, quote, I want to thank Rich for his service, and I respect his decision to focus on his health. I wish him all the best, Governor Leon Guerrero stated in a release. Today will be Ibanez's last day on the job. So the two most popular reasons for resigning in those situations where they don't hold a little bit of a giput for you, and you know, everybody brings something from, you know, dish to pass, and they give you a gold watch on your way out. In the other kinds of situations, it's either I wanted to spend more time with my family, or I had to resign for health reasons. I can't remember who the vocalist was on this song, but perhaps others will be able to help me out. If the title of the song was "Take This Job and Shove It," take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. So you gotta wonder sometimes if maybe that isn't. If that couldn't have been included in the story. The story could have been set to music, like a little bit of an operetta, and you could focus in on the director singing, "Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more." I have to wonder if that might not have been the case, say, with Frank Ishizaki. But in any case, Rich Ibanez is no longer at Parks and Rec. But this was a little bit different. I wonder if he were forced out, because you'll recall when Connie Jo Brennan Shinohara resigned as the deputy director of the port. The announcement was made at a meeting of the board of directors of the port, and right after the announcement was made, Rory said, "So we've lost our deputy director. However, have no fear." And there was this curtain over in the corner of the room, and Rory pulled the curtain back, and there was Luis Baza. Rory said, "I just happened to have the new deputy director right here, Luis Baza." So we didn't see a two-step maneuver here. We have an announcement. Rich Ibanez has resigned as the director of Parks and Recreation. He needs to concentrate on his health. And, oh, by the way, we have a new director of Parks and Recreation that will start tomorrow. That didn't happen. Now, there's one thing about in this article that I would quibble with. The article says that Ibanez faced some fire over his termination of former state historic preservation officer Linda Uggan. I didn't see that. I didn't see it at all. And I sort of expected it. But the really interesting thing when Ibanez fired Linda Uggan was the governor. And you know what it was that the governor did that was interesting? Another real Joe Cruz?
No, sir.
It wasn't what she did. It's what she didn't. She didn't do anything. She didn't say boo about Linda Uggan. She didn't seem to come to Linda Uggan's defense. But they pulled a Luis Baza with, what's his name, Patrick Lujan. Well, yeah, we had to fire Linda Uggan, but it's just a coincidence. Patrick Lujan is right here to take over. So I didn't see anything coming from the administration defending Linda Uggan. I didn't see any flowery statements when the Civil Service Commission apparently reinstated her, like, we're really glad to have Linda Uggan back on the job. On the other hand, there was a letter purportedly from employees at the Department of Parks and Recreation that said, we're good riddance. We don't want her back. So I think it's hard to say that Ibanez took any heat on that. Now, if I were to put on my speculation hat, it could very well be, the speculation could be that when Rich Ibanez fired Linda Uggan, he was only following orders. Perhaps the front office was no happier with Linda Uggan than the employees who arguably wrote that letter to the Civil Service Commission. Just speculation, of course, but I just can't say, I can't see any connection between Ibanez's resignation and his firing of Linda Uggan. Now, of course, popular mythology is, well, there was some pressure on Parks and Rec because Linda Uggan was too hard on the military, and that just didn't seem to be true at all. So I'll have to think about this a little bit, and I'll put Rich Ibanez on the card for tomorrow. I suppose the proper caption for that case would be Rich Ibanez versus Governor Leon Guerrero. In the meantime, if anyone has any insight into that matter, please let me know. So much for Rich Ibanez. So now I go to the card, and it's kind of a really short card today because no one has done anything to anybody else. There are people fighting over anything. And I got the Rich Ibanez story too late to put it in the card. So so there we are. So I've got things on the card that have been there for quite a while that I'll have to work on today. All very interesting items, but not as topical as the things we usually talk about. I'm going to start out with the Bernie Sanders 14. And by the way, I was listening to Rush on my way in here today, and Rush said that Bernie Sanders and the Democrats are more dangerous to the United States than coronavirus. And when you listen to some of the things that Bernie says, I think you kind of come to that conclusion that this guy is a dangerous man. Okay, so this is remember, this is Senator Bernie Sanders is a serious contender for 2020 Democrat presidential nomination, arguably the front runner. Time to ask him a few serious questions. And this is a guy named Charles Lane who works for, guess what, the WAPO. So, you know, when the Washington Post wants to ask him hard questions, it's kind of serious. So here's question number 7. In a recent interview, CNN's Jake Tapper asked twice if you still favor prohibiting any family from accumulating more wealth than it could spend in a lifetime, as you proposed in 1974, along with a 100% tax on all income above $1 million per year. You called Tapper's question, quote, not productive, but declined to answer it yes or no. Will you ever? So let's stop and examine that. In 1974, the Byrne said that he would, if he could, he would have a law that would prohibit any family from accumulating more wealth than it could spend in a lifetime. Now, I can't say that this would be offensive to me because it's something that's going to affect me directly. But And then the other part of it is 100% tax on all income above $1 million a year. This is, yeah. So, you know, people don't stop to think about it. And Bernie is really good at, you know, at playing, at casting people as victims and then playing, demagoguing the whole issue that obviously people who have been successful and made money are bad people. And people who have not been successful and have not made money are good people. So it's the job of the government to take the money from the bad people and give it to the good people. That's just simple arithmetic. But if you really stop to think about the economics involved, the only way our lives get better is if we, as you know, a population, are more productive. Back in the days when we were dealing with yeoman farmers and when everybody had his own farm, raising crops, if you raised a larger crop this year than last year, you were going to be better off this year than you were last year. So by increasing productivity, you improve your life. Well, we learned in the Industrial Revolution that by employing various kinds of modernizing techniques, the productivity of an entire society or an entire civilization can be improved. If you wanted an automobile, you wanted a new car, and you set out to build it yourself, how long would it take you? You could never do it in a million years. No single man could ever build an automobile. But using the techniques of mass production, assembly lines, et cetera, people can build, you know, we can build cars, and in our country, almost everybody can afford a car because of that. So by engaging in techniques of mass production and employing capital, all of our lives becomes better. But the essential element of this is that there has to be an accumulation of capital. Otherwise, we're back to the situation where, you know, like it was back probably a couple hundred years ago, you lived on a farm. If you wanted whatever you wanted, you kind of had to make yourself. So in order to enjoy the products of mass production, et cetera, accumulation of capital is necessary. So there are two different ways that capital can be accumulated. Either the state accumulates it or private individuals accumulate it. When private individuals accumulate capital, what do they do with it? They invest it. They invest it in ways that will help them and their industries and their companies be more productive. The more productive they are, the better our lives. Now, at least in theory, when the government accumulates the capital, the same thing would be true. That's called socialism, where the government owns the factors of production and distribution. But it never, ever works that way, because in a socialist economy, there are no market forces to gauge the prices of anything. Political decisions are made as instead of economic decisions, and the result is that production does not increase and people's lives don't get better. Well, Bernie is a democratic socialist, and this is where his democratic socialism would lead him if he had the chance. All these people that are making over $100 million a year, 100% tax. And no family should ever be able to accumulate more wealth than it could spend in a lifetime. So that's the Bernie lesson for today. Okay, next item on the card is, I left off yesterday with LGBTQIA versus butt judge. And leading up to that, you recall that I had an article from the Wall Street Journal, or a report on an article from a Wall Street Journal that said there is no sex spectrum beyond male and female. There are males and females, and that's it. And I commented a little bit about Sabina Paris's quest to outlaw bestiality here on the island. And then, you know, we have, as a society, become extremely interested in sex here now that we have become so woke. The next item on the card here is an open letter from the LGBTQIA community to candidate Butt Judge. And this is something I found in the New Yorker, which the New Yorker plucked from a website called Queers Against Pete. And their basic criticism of Mayor Pete is that he just isn't queer enough for them. So I read some of the letter yesterday, and the letter very quickly devolves into a list of bullet points of things that Mayor Pete isn't doing that makes him so unsatisfactory to the LGBTQIA community. And when I got a little ways into that list, I said, if those are the things that he's against, you know, maybe he's not so bad after all. So here are the things that the LGBTQIA community is criticizing Mayor Pete about. It says, Mayor Pete is leaning on the support and actively courting the LGBTQIA community, but has shown time and again that he is out of touch, not fit to be the President of the United States, and simply falls short. Mayor Pete opposes free universal public college and does not support canceling student debt. Well, how could a guy who doesn't support universal free college and canceling student debt, how could he hope to become president? I can see what the LGBTQIA community is saying there. Mayor Pete has no plan to restore the vote for all former inmates and currently incarcerated people, and to create an alternative to police or end cash bail. Wow. That's two for Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete has not addressed the concerns related to Eric Logan, a black South Bend resident who was shot and killed by a white police officer. Well, that's enough right there. Furthermore, while in office, Mayor Pete refused to release the police tapes relating to the demotion of Darrell Boykins, the first black person to serve as police chief. Now, of course, we know why Mayor Pete couldn't release those tapes relating to the demotion of Boykins, don't we, Real Joe Cruz? Remember what it was?
Yes, sir.
What was it?
I'm not sure.
A personnel matter.
Oh, that's right.
How basic can you get, Real Joe? It's a personnel matter.
I think when you speak of personnel matter, I think I automatically just shut my mouth.
Yeah, that's the answer to everything. Oh, we can't do that. That's a personnel matter. Mayor Pete has not said if he would support a moratorium to end deportations or that he would decriminalize border crossings. Wow. Mayor Pete opposes complete Medicare for all and universal child. What is wrong with this guy? All these good ideas, he's against them all. During his tenure, Mayor Pete demolished homes of many South Bend residents who were unable to afford repairs and drastically ramped up unfair fines. Mayor Pete does not support boycotting for political reasons. Mayor Pete has no plan to cap credit card interest rates or guarantee a job to everyone who needs one. He has no plan to guarantee a job to everybody who needs a job. Oh, boy, what a disaster that guy would be if he were president. Mayor Pete supports the increase of defense spending, which is already 50% of the federal budget. So these are the things that Mayor Pete wouldn't do. Okay, so it's time for the seventh inning stretch. We'll take the seventh inning stretch in Chicago, and then we'll go from Chicago to South Bend, Indiana.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Docomo Pacific wants to keep your business connected. When you sign up for a smart business bundle, you're gaining more than just mobile, internet, and phone services. Receive unbeatable value for your money and the convenience of having it all on one bill. All your business services on the widest and fastest network in Guam and the Marianas. Call 688-2677 for more information on partnering your business. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla has all your favorites this Lent season. Try their fish tacos, crispy fish burger, spicy garlic butter shrimp, or lobster pasta at a great price. Available daily for lunch and dinner. Visit Mezcla in Hagåtña and now in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
So, center field bleachers, Wrigley Field, Chicago. And we go from Chicago straight to South Bend, Indiana. It's not that far. It's probably only, I don't think it's even 80 miles. Probably on I-90. South Bend, Indiana. Notre Dame, the formerly great Catholic university. So, back in South Bend with Mayor Pete, I just read to you a list of all of the things that the LGBTQIA folks are really upset with Mayor Pete because he won't support. The list sounds like something that someone would have put together and said, let's send this to Bob. I think he'd like all of these, which is exactly true. I don't care much for Mayor Pete, but it's quite a list. Well, let's see what Jimmy can tell. Jimmy, what can you tell me about Mayor Pete?
He comes from Indiana. Is that right?
Say again?
I'd rather talk about Mayor Jimmy. Mayor Jimmy of Jonia.
The mayor of Jonia.
Yeah, Jimmy of Jonia. Yeah, I'm calling about how my campaign's progressing.
Go ahead and tell us, Jimmy.
The mayor of Jonia. Well, I just got back from a junket, so I'm a little tired today.
Okay.
And you know that's the main purpose of all the mayors: go on junkets, establish sister cities. Well, I just came back from Adelaide, Australia.
And you're up for that, huh, Jimmy?
We said we established a sister. Well, we're in the process of establishing a sister city, and we're going to go to the Ostrich Festival. We're going to establish ostrich festival and an ostrich industry right here on Guam. And this is going to help our economy. You know, I was talking to some of the other mayors, and they're not very happy about these jokes going around about the $60,000 Filipino Strawberry Festival. You know what people have been saying? The only reason these mayors went to Philippines to the Strawberry Festival to drink strawberry daiquiris and eat strawberry shortcake and do unmentionable things with Filipino strawberry tarts that we can't talk about on the radio. But that $60,000, Bob, that's an investment.
Okay, Jimmy.
Anyway, they invested $60,000, and we're going to see the economic results of the Strawberry Festival. So, anyway, and you know what else? We went on a junket. We went to Reykjavik Iceland. And I know all of our beloved fellow Gomeans are going to be interested in this. They got an ice festival up there in Reykjavik. And we're going to make a sister city relationship with Reykjavik, Iceland. And we're going to be going to the ice festivals and other things. Anyway, but you know what else I got?
I give up, Jimmy.
I got me a new PC. PC. That's not a politically personal computer. This is a political consultant. Got me a political consultant.
Okay, Jimmy.
And he's got deep roots in the community. His name is John Chofers, Calvo, Cruz, Tatiano, Terraje, Toves, Barcenas, Munoz, Blas, Bamba, Jones, Jr. III. He's deep roots in the community. He's very sharp. For instance, I asked him, are you sure we got enough deep community roots to ensure I get elected as the mayor of Jonia? He said, oh, yeah. We don't need no stick and parentheses in this election. Anyway, Bob, this guy, I call him Bamba Jones Jr. III, and our volunteers workers just call him Junior III. Anyway, Bob, this is the guy that put the V in Baucus campaign promises. He's the guy that put the O in over budget. He's the guy that put the T in tax increases. He's the guy that put the E in egregious Guam corruption. Bob, this is the guy that put the J in junket. This is the guy that put the I in insolvent hospital.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I think you're the guy that put the S in soliloquy. So it's been great, Jimmy. I really want to thank you for sharing today, but I got to let you go, okay? There we go. That's our Jimmy. You were late in opening the Jimmy. Well, no, you opened the Jimmy line kind of early today, didn't you? Yeah. Okay, so back to South Bend, Indiana. So I read a laundry list of things there that seemed to me like really good ideas that are drawing all kinds of fire from the LGBTQIA community. And then their open letter to Mayor Pete says, these gaps in Mayor Pete's platform will fall particularly hard on the LGBTQIA communities. Take housing as an example. 40% of homeless youth are LGBTQIA. Well, with a laundry list of initials like that, I'm surprised it's only 40%. Nearly 1/3 of trans people have experienced homelessness, and 1 in 10 have been evicted from their home for being trans. This is only exacerbated by the fact that there is no federal law that consistently protects LGBTQIA individuals from housing discrimination. And while Mayor Pete, like the rest of the field, supports the Equality Act, this isn't enough. Public housing remains in disrepair in the United States, with billions in backlogged repairs due to decades of underinvestment and the changes Pete proposes are grossly inadequate relative to the scale of the problem and will not solve our housing crisis. We need only look to Pete's record of tearing down hundreds of homes in Black and Latino neighborhoods in South Bend to show us that he is not committed to protecting our communities. As LGBTQIA people, our lives are layered. They're layered, L-A-Y-E-R-E-D. Their lives are layered. I don't know, is your life layered, Real Joe Cruz?
I don't think so, sir.
You know, like a top layer and a second layer and a third layer?
No, my life is not a parfait.
It's not a parfait.
No, sir.
Uh-huh. Okay. As LGBTQIA people, our lives are layered and must have an intersectional framework in our analysis, organizing, and movement building. Yeah, I kind of get the picture here of your intersectional framework. In other words, Mayor Pete, you got to pay more attention to identity politics. Just being queer isn't enough. And the letter goes on to say, we know that education justice is LGBTQIA justice. Racial and economic justice are LGBTQIA justice. Decarceration, letting people out of jail, is LGBTQIA justice. Immigrant and refugee justice is LGBTQIA justice. Health justice is LGBTQIA justice. Housing justice is LGBTQIA justice. I wonder what just plain old regular justice is like. Doesn't seem like there's much left. Demanding corporate accountability and for wealthy people to pay equitable share of taxes. Yeah, that's LGBTQIA justice. I'm beginning to get the picture here. During this critical election, it's important that LGBTQIA people demand more from our leaders and from a candidate claiming to be in community with us. Leaders within our communities, especially black trans women, have worked tirelessly over the past 2 decades to push LGBTQIA movements to value and fight for our full identities and experiences. We cannot afford to go backwards or accept the status quo. It is for these reasons and more that a group of us have come together under the banner of hashtag Queers Against Pete. If you agree, we invite you to add your name to this letter and join our collective voice against Butt Judge's candidacy for president. We believe the LGBTQIA community deserves better than Pete. Well, that's quite a letter, isn't it? Quite a letter. Why we shouldn't be voting for Mayor Pete. And there's a whole, talk about oppositional research or oppositional campaigning. Someone on the Republican side needs to make sure that everybody knows what the laundry list of why we can't vote for Mayor Pete is. And then the Republican candidate just needs to sign up with that and say, I agree with Mayor Pete on this. I've got an article here on the same subject. The LGBT community in San Francisco isn't happy with former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete. They feel as though he fails to represent their community. On Friday, 2 protesters were booted from a fundraiser at the National LGBTQ. I wonder what happened to the other 2 letters there. Center for the Arts for attempting to ask him a question. You can't question the mayor. You can't question Mayor Pete any more than you can question the Great Oz. When it became obvious that they were protesters, supporters began chanting, "Boot, edge, edge. Boot, edge, edge." I'm definitely proud of the fact that a gay candidate has made it thus far, but it's hard to enjoy or appreciate when his stances are so middle of the road and speak to a predominantly white upper-class audience. Sally Tamayo Lee, one of the women who was kicked out of the event, told The Guardian, "Those who feel he's too moderate take issue with I'll get it right yet. Boot, edge, edge? Is that how you say it, real Joe Cruz?
Booty judge.
Butt judge, okay. They take issue with him for not supporting Medicare for all, free college tuition, his issues with the black community, and his ties to billionaire donors. These are issues that don't impact the LGBT community as a whole, but impact individuals who are also queer. Meanwhile, other members of the LGBTQ community were outside protesting. Today, we're out here making a statement to Pete Buttigieg, who's running for president, that if he's coming into San Francisco, he needs to be meeting with real people. Yeah, real people in San Francisco. Maybe, how about Nancy? She's from San Francisco. Yeah, and Tamala was from San Francisco, or excuse me, Tamala was from San Francisco also. He's having a high-dollar fundraiser in the National LGBTQ Center for Arts. He has not reached out to any of the community groups on the ground who do the work to outreach to people. One person brought up a valid point. The Bay Area is going through a housing crisis. People have to pick between attending a $1,000 fundraiser for the former Indiana politician or using that money for rent. Oh, let's see. Should I go to this $1,000 fundraiser for Mayor Pete, or should I pay my rent? Oh, I better go to the fundraiser for Mayor.
They're going to have poo-poos there, sir.
Yeah, right. You don't have to worry about dinner. People have to pick between attending as you were. According to the Mercury News, tickets for the fundraising event, which were sold out, ranged in price for $250 all the way to $2,800. For $1,500, a person could get preferred seating at various events, like a town hall meeting or luncheon. For $2,800, a voter could do a meet and greet with the presidential candidate and host a fundraiser. Yeah, I wished I'd have known about this when I was in the States. Only $2,800 for a meet and greet with Pete Buttigieg? Wow. To get around that, one of the activists in her group, Queers Against Pete, hosted a People's Coffee event outside of Buttigieg's event in hopes that he would come out and speak with people. According to queer filmmaker Jethro Patalinghug, Buttigieg doesn't represent the LGBTQ community. I think it's important to note that he's been using his gay card. Wow. A gay card to propel his campaign up to this point. Patalinghug said, but he's not representative of our community. He may be representative of part, but not all, especially the most marginalized and disenfranchised. The old identity politics. The filmmaker said that Buttigieg fails to compare with other LGBTQ heroes like Jose Sarria and Harvey Milk. Quote, stop using your gay card because you're not representative of our community, Patalinghug said. So I wonder if they're set up so they could take that card and then punch a hole in it so that people would know it's no longer valid. Queers Against Pete take issue with Buttigieg for 7 reasons. When fundraisers came out of the event, they accused the protesters inside the event of being homophobes. From The Guardian, quote, you're homophobes. That's what you all are. You're homophobes, a Buttigieg supporter yelled at the protesters after the event. We're all gay, a protester responded. So the people that are in this event for Mayor Pete Buttigieg, there are protesters outside who are against Mayor Pete because he's not gay enough. And when people come out of the event, they're hollering at the protesters saying, you're homophobes, which is just about the worst possible thing you could ever call anybody. Okay, well, we're coming up on the home stretch here. I'm going to stay in San Francisco maybe till the end of the program.
Mezcla Tomorrow Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is now introducing an at-table all-you-can-eat breakfast menu from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. every Saturday and 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. every Sunday. Enjoy some quality time with your friends and family with some of your favorite local cuisine, from their waffle, hotcakes, and French toast station to their eggs and omelet station and a variety of scrumptious desserts. Weekends at Mezcla Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel just got hotter. New year, new menu. Call 969-2652 for reservations. Some restrictions apply.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so here we are back in San Francisco after we saw the beginning of the race here at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm reading an article about a speaking event that Mayor Pete Buttigieg had at the National LGBTQ Center for the Arts. And when he came out, there were protesters outside of that venue. And when he came outside, these protesters started hollering at Pete, and the people coming from inside said, you're homophobes. That's what you all are. You're homophobes. And then one of the protesters said, we're all gay. And then the Buttigieg supporter comes back, you interrupted that question. You're deplorable. And then another protester says, don't walk up on us. And then another supporter of Pete says, you're walking up on us, going up on us because we're gay men. You're horrible. The group quickly reset after that interaction, chanting, "Hey, Pete, come out. We got some things to talk about." Wow, they must be looking at some of the stuff that that Ishmael posts on Facebook, right? "Hey, Pete, come out. We got some things to talk about." And then the people who disrupted that fundraiser were all queer people of color. We're allowed to want the gay candidate who's running to do better and be better for queer communities of color. There's nothing homophobic about that. Yeah, so that's where we are, folks. That's Mayor Pete from South Bend running for president. Some words from his supporters, words from a group that opposes him, the hashtag Against Pete group, because he's just not queer enough. So the next thing I have on my card here, I don't have much time to do anything with it. This is Butt Judge versus Rush, or maybe it's the other way around. Yeah. And this is an article from the WAPO. When bullies crawl out from under their rocks, Butt Judge goes high. And this I got, again, from the WAPO. On the subject of his sexuality, Pete Buttigieg has gone high. Predictably, others have gone low and have been only too happy to go lower still as the former South Bend, Indiana mayor's success in the first two Democratic nominating contests has raised his national profile. Quote, "I grew up gay in Indiana," the even-keeled Buttigieg says in a stock line when asked about the topic. "I'm not afraid of bullies." Mr. Buttigieg's stoicism seems genuine. It's also done nothing to inhibit the bullies from crawling out from beneath the rocks. The most prominent to date has been Rush Limbaugh. Wow, Rush? The radio host whose enthusiasm for public predation makes him a strong contender for the title of America's #1 bully. You know, that Rush, he is. You know what he does, Real Joe Cruz?
What does he do, sir?
He tells the truth.
What a bully.
Yeah. And sometimes when he tells the truth about people, they don't look so good. Now, I can't imagine anybody saying anything about Mayor Pete from South Bend after what I just read about the gays against Mayor Pete. Anyhow, his enthusiasm for public predation makes him a strong contender for the title of America's #1 bully. Mr. Limbaugh, who wears his sexism, racism, nativism, and assorted other bigotries as badges of honor, once invited an African-American caller to, quote, "take that bone out of your nose." Last week sneered that Mr. Buttigieg loves to kiss his husband on the debate stage. Now, that's clearly being a bully. I got to go. I'll come back to this tomorrow, Rush versus Mayor Pete from South Bend. Tomorrow is our least favorite day of the week. It's Friday. It's the last day of the week for Tall Tales, but the Real Joe Cruz and I will be back here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So we'll see you then.